yourself a couple times in the chest just twice will basically cause your body to go into such shock that you can't move any of your muscles anymore. And yet this guy kept going. It was like he was a puppet being controlled by someone else. Now, let me ask you this question. If you can take a highly trained, highly disciplined military officer and make him stab himself 26 times in the chest, wouldn't you say you can make just about anybody do just about anything? Except, of course, for the power of the blood of Yeshua, Jesus Christ. Now, beyond the Tesla howitzers, as they're called, comes the next generation of energy weapons. These are called quantum potential weapons. Currently, they're only held by 3 or 4 nations: Russia, China, Brazil, and the friendly little nation. These have even potential for greater power and range because they use multiply connected space-time continua to create their power. However, there's an even newer nightmare on the horizon: EMBW. We've already said that EM stands for electromagnetic and BW stands for biological warfare. That's the symbol there for biohazard on the screen. This is a simple but lethal strike that could have horrific results. And many people that have studied this say they think that these force amplifiers are what were behind the Gulf War syndrome. Because here's what they do. These force amplifiers are a form of scalar energy where they can broadcast the electronic signatures of diseases into the human body. Okay? What happens is that they will send like 8 or 9 separate diseases, just the energetic signatures, and what it does is it makes your immune system go into red alert, DEFCON 1, and white blood cells, killer cells, T killer cells, macrophages just boom, 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 they're going out, and the body is just, totally trying to fight off these diseases which don't even exist. And you feel drained, you feel crummy, you go to the doctor and there's nothing wrong with you, quote unquote, because you don't have any disease. You just have an immune system that's going crazy. And of course, you end up becoming almost like someone who has AIDS in the sense that your immune system is terribly compromised. Now, this is called immune system spreading. And unfortunately, our mass casualty treatment units are not prepared for this. They have not been trained for this. They have no idea of how to deal with it. And if you understand, like either emergency room procedure or mass casualty treatment procedure, they have a thing that's called triage. And what they do is when someone comes in, like say to the emergency room, they look at them, and especially if it's real busy or whatever, if you're level 1, that means that you're basically very minor and you can wait a while. Maybe you have a sprained ankle, or maybe you have a minor cut or something. Level 2 means you're pretty serious, but you could still maybe wait a few minutes. Level 3 means you're really pretty bad and they better get at you, stat, as they say in the medical trade. And then finally they have triage level 4, which is called black level. And this is someone that is so bad off that basically, unless you have absolutely nothing better to do with your time, let them die. And so in any situation where like dozens of casualties are being rushed into the ER or whatever, level black people are just going to be put aside and basically die because they can't waste the resources to take care of them. And see, these force amplifiers will move entire populations into triage level 4. It's just going to be a horrible mess. But it gets even worse, believe it or not, if it could get worse. Recently, according to my information, they have been able to develop and research the exact electromagnetic signatures of actual diseases. And for 3 or 4 serious diseases, like plague, smallpox, anthrax, diseases like that, they can actually broadcast the disease into your body from around the world. And all of a sudden, you've got anthrax in your body, or you've got plague in your body. And you don't even know where it came from. No little envelopes full of powder, no nothing like that. Now, can you imagine that? Because they could just spray, if you will, Washington, D.C. with this kind of energy. And it'd be all over. I mean, nothing could be done about it. I mean, let's face it, right now most people agree our healthcare system is on life support. we can barely handle what we've got now. Imagine if all of a sudden 100,000 people in Washington, D.C. came down with anthrax. I mean, it would be all over. They couldn't do anything. But in spite of all of this, the National Institute of Health and the medical science community and the intelligence community don't seem to be taking any kind of defensive measures against this thing. Well, folks, what's the answer here? I mean, our own government appears to be totally behind in developing weapons or countermeasures for a scalar attack. And let's face it, this is not the sort of threat that can be readily answered by the usual survival strategies. You know, the old guns, gold, and groceries thing. You go up in the mountains and, you know, hide out in a cabin. Because, as I've said, they have this grid all over America, and they can blanket America. There's something else that needs to be done. We're talking about multiple knockout punches here. Look at this list. Devastating plague attacks, a meltdown of part or all of the U.S. power grid, total dudding of all our nuclear weapons, aircraft, or other technology, earthquakes or eruptions of supervolcanoes, possible delusions, mind control, mass hallucinations, religious deception. All of this is possible. In fact, it's probable. Now, you know, I know this all sounds pretty overwhelming, but I want to tell you at this point a personal story that I hope will be able to give you some hope in all of this. Some of you know, if you're connected with our ministry with One Accord, that my wife has been, since 2000, has been very sick with congestive heart failure. And she wanted me to tell this story to you tonight just to illustrate something very, very important. My wife back in 2000, this was in the spring of that year, was very good health, and she was laying in bed one night falling asleep, and all of a sudden she heard this strange sound in the room. It was kind of like a sine wave, like a doo sort of sound. And within a few seconds, it was like it sort of was zeroing in, trying to find something, and then all of a sudden it seemed to center on her, and then this white, like, flash of light hit her in the chest. And she was like flapping up and down on the bed like someone was getting electroshock therapy. You know, she couldn't move, she couldn't cry out, she was just sort of, and of course I was laying there snoring. You know, I didn't even know anything was going on, you know, some mighty husband, you know, protecting his wife, right? Well, anyway, this went on for what seemed to be an eternity, and she was just crying out to Jesus for help. She was, you know, pleading the blood, and after, she said it was probably actually about a minute, it stopped. But she just laid there, and she was just exhausted, and she kind of fell immediately back to sleep. And then she woke up the next morning, and she shared that with me. And, you know, she was feeling pretty peaked after that, but she didn't really know what it was. Well, a few days later, she got an envelope in the mail. I was out ministering somewhere, and she had gone and gotten the mail and was opening up to see what the offerings were and so on. And this envelope was open, and there was this white powder in it. Now, this was a year before 9/11. And, you know, because of our knowledge of the occult, we knew that there's certain kinds of voodoo rituals where you lay down what's called a veve, and it's made out of flour, and you do, like, curses and stuff in the ritual, and you sweep up this flour, put it in an envelope, mail it to the person, and the person opens the envelope, they get hit with a curse. So naturally, what she did was she pleaded the blood over and just threw it away and forgot about it. Well, within a couple of days, she started getting really sick. She got worse and she got worse. And I'll tell you, number one, my wife doesn't like doctors very much. Number two, she's a pretty tough cookie. But finally, this was going on for a degree of time where she just said, I got to go to the ER. This is just too weird. And so we went to the emergency room. And because she knew emergency room procedure, she knew how to get in quickly. She said, I think I have a heart problem. And that's like, whoop, whoop, whoop. You know, that immediately, that's like triage level 3, you know. So they rushed her in, and they hooked her up to an echocardiogram machine, and they found out that, yes, in fact, her heart was very bad. It was actually the ejection fraction is what they call it in cardiac medicine, was at 6%. Now, you've got to realize, to put that in perspective, a normal person's ejection fraction is 60%. And if your ejection fraction goes much below 6, you're dead. So they freaked out. They said, you know, you could die at any time.